Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect. This episode we are going to be discussing season 2 of House of the Dragon. Spoilers and all. We will get to that in just a second. But first, I'm Dave Lott. Joining me for this is Michelle Hillard. How's it going, Michelle?
Hi everyone. Hello. Hi David.
Hey, how's it going? Just the two of us on this one. So season 2 of House of the Dragon is said and done. Last episode 8, aired this past Sunday. So we are going to talk about the whole season. Of course, episode 8 is the most recent. So I have a feeling a lot of our discussion may focus on what's fresh in our minds from that last episode. But really, I figured we'd be talking about the whole season because we really haven't been covering every episode here on the show. So we're going to look back at the whole season. But again, this is going to be a spoiler warning. If you haven't watched House of the Dragon yet, season 2 in particular, we recommend you check that out first. And don't let us ruin it for you. And then come back and check this out later. Oh.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we had that one episode that covered the first 3 episodes of season 2, but we really haven't discussed it since because there's just been a lot of everything happening since then and now. But no, I'm looking forward to this recap.
Yeah. Before we get into our thoughts, I was going to share one bit of news that we've gotten since the season ended. We're streaming live and recording this on Wednesday, but this past Monday, right after that final episode aired, I guess Ryan Condal was doing a press conference, and he revealed that this show, House of the Dragon, is going to end with season 4. I'm reading from Variety here, so bear with me. But during a press conference on Monday discussing season 2 finale of House of the Dragon, showrunner and co-creator Ryan Condal revealed that the Game of Thrones prequel will include 2 more seasons and will conclude with season 4. Condal also confirmed that the 3rd season is currently being written. They will be doing prep for it in the fall with the plan to go into production in early-ish 2025.
Yeah, so that means we probably won't get that show. I mean, if I got my wish, we get it for Christmas in 2025, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I feel like we're not going to see it until early 2026.
The general consensus seems to be we're going to be getting this in 2 years. So,
Yay.
I mean, I think that's what we all expected.
I mean,
we also have
another
spin-off show in this world that's coming in a year. I believe the actual show name of that is Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I think. But it's based off of a George R.R. Martin story. I think it's the Tales of Dunk and Egg. And please forgive me if I'm getting part of that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Yes. That's coming in a year. So we have something from the world of Game of Thrones to look forward to. And then a year later, we'll get more House of the Dragon. So... yeah, we have to wait. Anyway,
I will say, being a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon fan, it requires a lot of patience. A lot of patience. I mean, that's not even on the book side of things, and that's a whole nother level of patience that I do not have. So,
yeah. And actually, I was thinking we'll get into the book thing later. There's a part of me that's tempted to now read Fire and Blood.
Yeah,
me too. Have to wait for this, but I'm torn, but we'll get to that.
I know.
So season 2 is said and done. It was 8 episodes. We're definitely going to talk in particular about episode 8, that finale. But in general, I'm going to ask you first, I think. What did you think of the season in general?
The season as a whole, I did like a lot. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was as strong as its first season or even its predecessor show, Game of Thrones. It was all right in comparison to. I feel like there's a few things in the storyline that they did for the show that I was like, some things just don't seem quite realistic or even and I acknowledge that I'm talking about a fantasy show, but there's things that just don't seem quite in the realm of normal possibility of things, like traveling. Like, you know, it seems very, I don't know. It doesn't seem to work for me a lot of times, and I was kind of bump on that sometimes. And yeah, I feel like sometimes the graphics would be really nice in one scene, and then the next scene it would be like, oh, this scene's not as nice graphic wise with the CGI and the dragons. I'm like, oh, that's weird, because a minute ago it looked great, now it looks weird. And I feel like it's varied a lot shot for shot in different scenes. And yeah, I don't know, I think sometimes I felt like the show had characters that would do things that seemed out of character for them and would just not quite mesh with what we've previously seen or known them to be as a person. So I feel like it was just it was a season just of like some highs and some lows and some ups and downs, peaks and valleys. I still really enjoy the story. I enjoy where this is going. I enjoy this show. I just think this season is aight.
All right.
That's all right.
I guess if I'm going to talk about the season in general, I'm quite happy with the show. I don't really know how I could compare it to the first season in that, like, there's, even though it's the same show, the first season and the second season are so incredibly different in terms of the kind of story they're telling. The first season, you were dealing with these kind of jumps in time because of the nature of like this like kind of vast set of years they were trying to cover in that first season, back when Rhaenyra and Alicent are young, and then they grow up and we change actors and everything. So I don't know, in that regard, for me, it's hard to compare it to the first season. Plus, I think I kind of just want to rewatch the first season again soon, and refresh my mind on some things. But I quite enjoyed this season overall. There's definitely things I bump on, and there's things in this finale I bump on, and we'll get to in a minute, and things throughout the season we'll probably also cover if I can remember as well. But overall, I really enjoyed the season quite a bit, actually. There were major highlights in the season for me, and I don't know, I would argue that for the most part, the cinematography and the special effects were pretty top-notch, in my opinion. I mean, sure, maybe there were moments, but honestly, when it came to the dragons in particular, I never really had any issues with the way anything looked. And which is pretty incredible in comparison to other shows that we have talked about on this podcast recently that had basically the same budget. And I'm like, how is that possible? That this show had the budget it had? I mean, 20 million an episode is a lot, but yeah. I mean, there's a lot to do here, especially with the amount of dragons we're seeing in this season in particular. No, overall, I would say I'm to a point with this show in terms of my fandom for it and my love for it that now I enjoy episode to episode almost kind of no matter what. I mean, I guess what I mean by that, I just enjoy and watching what's going on with the story. And yeah, there might be things I bump on, but for the most part, I still enjoy each episode, some more than others, but I kind of love it. But and one thing we didn't mention at the top that just popped in my head, and maybe we should bring up just so everyone knows what perspective we come from. We are not book readers in the sense of Game of Thrones and Fire and Blood that this is based on.
Right.
We have not read that book. We have not read any of the Game of Thrones books. I think I did read some of the very first Game of Thrones book, but that's it. I have not read Fire and Blood. I have no idea what's going to happen. I may read it now just because I don't know that I want to wait, but I'm torn on that. But yeah, I meant to bring that up at the top of the show that if you're wondering, that's our perspective. We have not read the books. Yeah.
And so when it comes to a comparison of knowledge of like what happened in the book to what happened in the episode or the show as a whole, like I have zero knowledge. And in a way, I really do enjoy going in each episode going, I have no idea what the heck is going to happen here. I can predict all I want, but most of all the time, I have zero idea where this show is going to take me episode to episode, let alone in an entire season, what is going to occur. Right. And so part of me really enjoys that, like the not knowing. The downside is like now I'm like where we left off at the end of this season, this last episode just leaves you on such a like precipice that I'm just like, I kind of got to know now. Like, I want to know. I'm itching to know, like,
where we go from here.
Yes. It's so like, oh my gosh, we've built to this level, this point, and now we're just going to have to wait 2 years? Man, like, really makes me think I'm going to fire up an audiobook one of these days. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I have a feeling if I do read it, I will be listening to it just because of life, and I know how I am with books right now, and I'll probably won't have the time to complete it, but I'll listen to it. That could happen.
There's a big discussion in the book talk world, and like I subscribe to like say what's called Book of the Month. And I know there's other major book clubs out there. Oprah has a book club. Reese Witherspoon has a book club. But I've noticed a trend lately that basically everybody has said, like, I feel like for a long time, people would kind of, poo-poo people that listen to audiobooks. And of recent, everybody's kind of come out and been like, you know what? You listen to an audiobook, you read the book. Nothing gets skipped. You read the book. You took the time and the energy to absorb that information. You have read the book. And so I feel like that is where book/audiobooks are at now. I think people in the book world are going, no, you've read it. I mean, you read it with your eyes, but you read it with your brain still.
Right.
So no, don't poo-poo the fact that you and I are going to probably listen to the audiobook version of it just because of our work/personal lifestyles that we have. That's how we can find the time. So I proudly will admit that I will most likely be listening to an audiobook if I do finally lose my willpower and give in because I can't wait for 2 years.
So in particular with this last episode, there definitely seems to be quite I guess I would use the word uproar online or just from fans of the show about that final episode and how it ended.
Opinions.
There are definitely opinions.
There are opinions.
As usual, we really haven't discussed our opinions with each other, so I don't really know where you land on this. I know I kind of went to you first with your general thoughts on the season. I guess I'll go in terms of the episode because I feel like we have to have a take on this. Everybody's got an opinion. I don't even know if it's that divided. To me, it seems kind of one-sided, at least from the perspective I see.
Yeah.
I'll say this. When the show ended, I was actually fine. Like, I'm not saying I don't have issues with the way it ended, and I'm kind of mixed in terms of my opinion on the decision they made with how they ended the season. But for me, I kind of like Game of Thrones. It's really not about the destination. It's about the journey. And overall, I enjoyed the season. And the way this season ended, to me, felt pretty reminiscent of many seasons of Game of Thrones. In particular, the fact that I seem to remember that some episodes of Game of Thrones, the next to last episode would be like the big episode. And then the final episode of the season would just kind of wrap things up in a way and not be as big as you were kind of used to with season finales of shows in general. And in a way, I kind of felt that's how this episode was. I mean, with that said, especially knowing we have to wait 2 years, I guess it is a bit more difficult to stomach. But I don't know. I guess I feel like I've seen a lot of reaction about like, man, how do you end it on a cliffhanger like this? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like the last episode of last season ended on a pretty big cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. We're obviously talking about spoilers. She just finds out her son has died and she basically just like turns and looks at the camera and that's it. And I mean, this episode, kind of ends with a pretty well done montage of all the various characters. And I mean, yeah, was I maybe hoping for some action, even just maybe based on the kind of the what's coming next week kind of thing we got for this coming episode. Mm-hmm. And I think that that advertisement for this episode showed a lot of the like preparation for battle, kind of giving you a sense that we're going to see a battle in this episode, but really what you were seeing was what we saw at the end of this episode. So I don't know. I understand the kind of anger in regards to like how this season ended, but at the same time, I didn't really have a problem with it. I mean, there's definitely things in this episode we're going to get to that I bumped on and I found to be very odd, kind of creative choices. But overall, I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed the season. I didn't really have that big of a problem with the way this ended. I mean, other than the fact that we have to wait 2 years. And sure, I've heard it mentioned, and I would agree that with everything I just said, like, I've heard it said that this feels kind of more like a mid-season finale, and I would say that is accurate. If this were a show where we were going on our holiday winter break and we were going to come back to it in a month, this feels like a proper ending to it for a mid-season finale, not a season finale. But I don't know. I guess, again, going back to what I'm used to with Game of Thrones, it didn't surprise me. I guess if in a way I kind of expected it, given how the whole season was progressing. I didn't really think we were going to get some major like battle just within this final episode that was going to kind of like end with anything in particular. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on the finale. What about you?
I would say like my first reaction when it finished was kind of like, wow, man, that was a lot of buildup for not a lot of payoff. And so I was a little disappointed at first. I was like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, I've seen all the memes making fun of it. The one that really stands out is the one that's like, wow, that really was just a whole trailer for the next season, basically. Like, it was a promo for what's coming. And it kind of felt that way. And I will say, like, now that I've sat with it for a few days and I've looked at the season as a whole, I can definitely say, like, I think it's fine. I think it ended where it kind of needed to, in a way. The whole season is a buildup of like, so we're going to go to war. We're going to do this. Okay. How are we going to go to war? And so you spend the whole season figuring out how in the world are we going to go to war with this other king. I'm Team Black, I guess is the best way to put it. So how are you going to go to war against House Green at this point? And how is this going to look? What are the possible outcomes of this? And is everybody on our team? Is everybody supporting us? And so you spend the whole season basically just trying to figure out how is this going to work out logistically. Quite honestly, it's about logistics. How are we going to do this and be successful at the end of this? And so in a way that the season wraps up where it should in that regard. It ends up with, okay, we've gotten all of the tools that we need to go to war and to war successfully. And so, yeah, in a way, it ends the correct way for this season. If you look at the season's, entirety of a storyline. Yeah, I mean, pretty quickly into the episode itself, I realized, I was like, we're not going to see dragons battle in this episode. Like, that's not what's happening. Like, you could tell with the pacing of the way it was going and how they started like kind of putting things in happy little boxes with bows. And I was like, that's just not what's going to happen this episode. And so I kind of quickly had to let go of that, I think, thought belief, which was what a lot of people were going into the episode as. And that's fine. But I get why people are disappointed with this episode. I think the big thing is if we were to have gotten into the battles themselves by the end of this season should be probably 2 more episodes longer, and they probably should have kind of cut out some stuff in the middle to make that kind of a storyline work. But that's not what they did. And so in a way, this worked out perfectly time-wise. 8 episodes to get you to this point. It worked. So I think I'm at a point of acceptance. It's cool. We're good. Everything's good. That's where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I am. I mean, it's tough to have, again, not being a book reader and not knowing where this goes. Maybe if I did know the rest of the story, I would be questioning, based on what I know is coming, you know, why did they structure things the way they structured? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, all I can figure is that they structured it the best way they can for, you know, what they have left to tell. I mean, I'd like to think.
Especially now that, you know, once Monday, that news dropped that it's, I guess when I left the episode at the end of that night, on Sunday night, I was like, okay, we've got one more season of this show. Like, there's going to be the season of the battles, of the war itself. And then Monday morning, it's like, oh no, there's 2 more seasons. I was like, dude, how much more story is there? Holy cow. Like, I honestly was like, there's more than just a season worth of story here. So I guess on one side of the coin, I'm hoping there's more than just one season worth of story here. On the other side of the coin, is there actually just one more season of story and they're going to stretch it into 2? Question mark? So I kind of see both sides to it right now.
I can understand that fear, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Like,
I think
I'd like to think.
Yeah, I think if I knew the books, I'd probably feel
more
comfortable.
We're going to keep going back to
I
that,
have
but
no idea.
It's another reason I think I'm super curious now to finally go, screw it, I'm going to read Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. And with that said, we know that they're deviating a lot from the book. And I mean, if we read it, we'll know that version and then maybe have a sense of what they are going to possibly do. But they're definitely making different creative choices for the show from the book. Anyway.
So I think I'm trying to figure out how we want to continue this conversation about this episode. Or do we want to talk more about the season as a whole?
Oh, I mean, hey, whatever you want to do. I mean,
I think I kind of just want to focus on this last episode because it's kind of, I mean, as exciting as some of the other things that happened. I mean,
I will say maybe if we're going to dig deeper into the finale, I'd like to give my piece on episode 7 in that I did find episode 7 quite good. I had heard some hype about it beforehand because they showed the episode at Comic-Con to a room of people. And I'd heard some pretty major hype coming out of that of like, oh my God, this is amazing, which made me go, wow, what happens in episode 7? And it didn't really disappoint for me on a couple levels. One, I just thought the story overall on episode 7 was great. And then not only that, but you know, we're not watching this show in movie theaters on huge screens. But with that said, I think if you are at least watching it on a decent sized TV, on a good TV at home, which I think most people are, and you're not watching it on your phone or tablet, episode 7 in particular was a treat in that regard, especially with the dragons. I mean, even the way the episode opened with that shot on the beach of this like standoff between Rhaenyra and whatever his name is. I always it's like Alan or
no, Alan's the other one.
Oh,
I thought.
Oh no, Alan is the other one. You're right. Anyway, that standoff on the beach with the 2 dragons and just the way the dragons sound as they're kind of calling to each other. It's just that, and then the end of the episode with Vermithor and everything that happens there, and just really giving you the sense of what it's probably like to be near a creature of this size. And like it really came through for me. Like I was watching it kind of in awe. Like I really enjoyed episode 7 quite a bit. So I mean, what was it, episode 3 or 4 when what's her name died and that battle happened. That was a great episode as well.
Episode 4, episode 5.
But that was a great episode as well.
Yeah,
another highlight of the season, I would say. But episode 7 was pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the episode. I think it's episode 5, where Sir Christian Cole goes to, I can't remember the name of the town now, to go sack it, basically. But the whole thing is a trap for Team Black. And Rhaenys volunteers herself, and she goes out there, and seeing her dragon go up against Aegon's dragon really puts the size of her dragon into perspective. I was like, holy cow. But then, even though we did see this dragon in action at the end of season 1, to then see, I keep going,
Aemond?
Aemond. Didn't see Aemond on, what is it, Vermithor? No.
Anyways, now I'm drawing a blank.
To see him on his dragon, which is one of the largest dragons.
It is the largest.
The largest dragon. Is like, holy cow. I mean, like, I will agree. Like, I think as a whole, this whole season, being able to see the dragons in flight, in fight, in just doing everything the dragons do, it's impressive to see what they have done, for sure. And then, episode 7 was just, it was quite incredible to see it all kind of pull together, and to see those two dragons, like you said, in that opening shot, but then also just the dragons at the end, where it's this standoff with Aemond, where Aemond goes to go find out what the heck is happening on this island. And he shows up and he's like, oh yeah, no, we need to go. We need to turn around. We need to, no.
Yeah.
We need to, it's like the one of the few times he has a cooler head, and he actually goes, no, we need to approach this much differently now. Everything is different. And he turns tail and goes. And episode 7 was probably the highest of the episodes for the whole season, in my opinion, as far as just the way the story works through and the events that happen. And they're really the catalyst to the whole situation that we're going up into season 3. No, that was an excellent episode. I mean, how can you not enjoy that episode? Honestly, I don't know, but.
And episode 4 was the one.
It was episode 4 where Princess Rhaenys dies.
Yeah.
It was so funny too.
Vhagar is the name of the dragon we were trying to think of.
Okay. It was so sad because, like, I think I even said to you at the end of episode 3, going, man, if they kill Princess Rhaenys, I'm going to be really bummed out.
Yeah, I think you said it on the show.
Yeah. And then they did. And I was like, man, I am really sad, because she was a great character.
I know, she was great.
Such a good character. And like, to see her go into that battle and then halfway through realize, like, yeah, I'm not coming out of this battle. Like, she already kind of thought she might not come out of this battle going into it. And then she realized halfway through, she's like, yeah, that's not happening. I'm gonna have to, I'm going out. Yeah, that was a bummer to see her go, because she was just a really strong character, and that was that was a pooper. But we finally got to see the hidden dragon that's been hanging out in the Eyrie.
Oh, the Eyrie.
The Eyrie.
Yeah, I forget what
sheep eater.
Something like
goat
that.
eater
I don't
or something
know.
like that. That's what they named. I don't even know if that's the official name, but that's like what it's been like.
I mean,
coined as.
I don't think it has a real name. I'm again not having not read the book. I don't think the dragon has a name, because it's like a wild dragon.
Right.
So it's got like this nickname, I think people seem to refer to it as. I mean, we haven't heard that reference in the show at all.
No.
Just that conversation that happens where, again, I don't remember the characters' names, but
Daemon's second daughter from his first marriage.
Yeah, but what's her name is telling her, like, oh yeah, something about a wild dragon. I forget how the
wild
went.
dragon that's been hanging out there.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was cool to kind of see that. And then we get the very small glimpse of, and I'm sure the name is out there, but it's the dragon that Alicent Hightower's youngest son rides. And we got to see him at the very, very end of the show on his dragon with the Hightower army going to battle, I guess. So that was kind of cool to be like, oh, look, there's more dragons. All the dragons. They're all doing their thing now.
One thing in particular in episode 8 that I bumped on, I mean, is I thought this as soon as the scene started, and I don't know about you. I wanted to ask you about it. That scene with Cole and whatever his name is, Allison's brother, who
Oh,
confronts him.
Gawain Hightower, I think it is.
Yeah, I think we'll go with that. And
Gawain.
that scene that happens where he basically confronts him about, I guess sleeping with his sister and all, I was watching it going, what's happening? Like, how did we get here all of a sudden? And I've heard that argument as well. Is like, it felt like a scene that belonged in an earlier episode, and for some reason it was included in the finale, and it does feel like that. It feels like this should have happened in episode 5. Almost basically right after
The battle.
that battle in episode 4.
Yeah, it should have been like in 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And
it was just really odd. Like, it was a good speech that Cole gives and everything,
it
but
was a good speech that Cole gave.
but it did feel super weird.
So awkward.
I was curious if you
No, I was
bumped on that at all.
I thought it was so weird. I was like, why is he just now deciding to confront this dude? Like, he's known for a while.
Yeah.
Like, he figured it out pretty fast. And I'm like, is it just that, like, they're out and they've been out holding this ground for a while and they're starting to get hungry and cranky and they're all just over this kind of BS? And then he's just like, F it, I'm confronting Cole today. And then he goes up there and goes to confront him. And Cole's like, yeah, basically, I'm ready to die anytime now. It's cool. I'm over this crap. Like,
right.
it was like, wow, okay. And then it's funny because it's like his whole speech completely reframes the entire reason for this conversation. And then Gawain is like, oh, wow, this dude's got a point. What the hell are we doing? We're all just going to die. We might as well embrace it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so like, wow, you guys are going deep today. Very randomly in this conversation that really came out of nowhere. And it's not even like we saw them in an earlier scene or we see them later. It was literally that scene. That was it. It was just the weirdest place for them to insert that scene at. I totally agree.
I agree that it either felt like there was a scene that was deleted that we missed before that to kind of place us in that situation, or really, to me, it felt more like, hey, this was shot for an earlier episode and there was a decision at some point because, hey, we want to have Cole appear or these guys appear in the finale, just so in the finale we can kind of touch base with them, which I get that perspective, but
it doesn't work. It doesn't flow.
I feel like something else should have been shot to do that. I mean, we did that with Otto, for example. He just randomly appears in the very end of the episode. I mean, why couldn't we have done something similar with these guys? And again, this felt like it belonged in an earlier episode. That's how it felt to me.
Not to just jump around all over the place, but we're just going to jump
away.
around. So Otto, we get him for a hot second at the end in that montage.
Yep.
And he's in a cage. And it looks like somebody with a torch light is approaching his cage. And he turns and basically acknowledges their existence. And then the scene's over. So it basically means that Otto has been in a cage ever since he left King's Landing, or was dismissed from King's Landing, we should say.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, that's what I was about to say. So I have a theory.
I mean, I'm just saying, but before your theory, we don't know if he's been in a cage the whole time or not.
Okay, true. We don't know if it's been the entirety of the time. So this leads to my theory, which is that he has been in a cage the entirety of the time.
Okay.
And then he actually hasn't even left King's Landing. I wonder if Laris got him en route and has captured him and has been holding him somewhere this whole time. That's my theory. And that somebody else knows about it, which is why that's happening. And I say this because Alicent has been actively trying to get letters to her father, and nobody really seems to have a real answer on where Otto is. They're like, oh yeah, he's back at your guys at Castle Green. And he's back there. And then she's like, I don't know. It's kind of weird that he's ghosting me. Like, we didn't leave on great terms, but we also didn't leave on the worst terms. Like, what the heck? It was just, and so yeah, my theory is that he's actually in a cage somewhere, in King's Landing.
I get that theory. I don't. I'd have to think about that. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that theory, but
it's just my theory. I have no knowledge of anything.
Oh yeah, we don't know.
Zero knowledge. Speaking of Larys, though, another scene that I bumped on was literally the entire scene with Larys and King
Aegon.
Aegon. It was a weird scene, man.
In what sense?
It's a weird scene, in my opinion, in that Larys is able to basically convince the king, like, you should go into hiding. We both should go into hiding. We should run away and hide. And that not only will we run away and hide for a long time, but we'll come back and everybody's going to just accept us with open arms and love us and raise us together. And in celebration, and life is going to be just peachy keen. I was like, really? He's really buying this? And the only thing I get that why he would buy it, and the only thing is that he's like, Aemon's going to kill you. And that I 100% believe. I'm like, Aemon will totally kill this guy. He's totally just going to kill his brother. He'll be a kingslayer.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't bump on it. I mean, I get what you're saying in regards to, I guess I didn't bump on it in the episode in regards to, I think this is crazy for these characters. I mean, sure, from an outside perspective, do I think that the thought that them coming back and them being welcomed with open arms, that's not going to happen. But I don't necessarily disagree that that's what these characters, how the scene would play out. I mean, I think if anything, yeah, like you just finished with, the whole like, hey, you're gonna die if you stay here is enough to convince Aegon to go, yeah, screw it. What's the point?
That's the number one selling point for sure.
So
I think everything
that's
else
enough for me, and to buy into that. Aegon would go, okay, fine, screw it. I have no hope here.
It's interesting to see. I mean, it's interesting to see because I think in a way it is kind of a reflection of Aegon's mental distress. I think he realizes how quickly he climbed and how ridiculously fast he fell, quite literally and figuratively. And I think to begin with, he really didn't even want to be king. But because he was so young and the moment he got the crown on his head and thousands of people cheered for him, it kind of went to his head. And then he was like, cool. Yeah, I'm cool being a king. I can do this stuff. I can be king. Yeah, king all day. Woo, woo, woo. But then when it comes down to it, no, he can't be king. He's an idiot. He has no idea what he's doing.
Right.
And yeah, he's barely hanging on by a thread physically and mentally after the catastrophe that happened to him. So yeah, no, he's in bad shape. And so it does make sense for him to run away. I just think I was amazed that Larys was able to pull it off. Like, really? This guy convinced you? This dude? Just because he's got a club foot and now that you're all messed up, you're like, I'm down with it. I get it.
Why Larys in particular?
I don't know. And
I understand that.
I think that's the other thing that's really interesting is Larys is, I mean, of all the people, I feel like I could clearly say that Larys is playing the Game of Thrones. And I say that because in the first season, he seems to be pretty at Alicent's side, right? Like he's in her corner. And then this season, he's playing the field here. He's going after Aegon and trying to get on his good graces. And he's still trying to kind of play okay with Alicent. And he's kind of very particular about how he deals with Otto and Aemond, and he knows that Aemond does not like him, and so he's trying to figure out how to navigate this situation. And he is kind of playing the Game of Thrones in a way, honestly. Of all the people this season, he has really kind of played the field of trying to gather where he knows he's going to be strong and who's going to help support him in the future.
Right.
So I'll give Larys that much. Okay.
Another thing I know, I guess I don't know how I feel about is the whole kind of situation with the 3 new dragon riders. And
Oh yeah.
Ulf, is that his name in particular?
Ulf. Oh, Ulf.
Yeah, in regards to the characters and like kind of really, is that what their character would do kind of thing? I don't know. Ulf and the way he acts, it's weird. Like, in one sense, like the Ulf that we've seen throughout the show leading up to the Red Sewing and him claiming, was it Silverwing?
Silverwing, yeah.
And, you know, I don't know how to put this. Like, his attitude isn't necessarily what I have an issue with. Like, to me, I take it as now he feels like, oh, wow, I've been able to claim a dragon. I am hot shit now.
Oh, yeah. The entitlement came quick and swift.
And I guess I don't have an issue so much with his character in particular, the way like that's being portrayed, but it's more like how everyone's kind of like dealing with him that I'm like, I don't know. I feel like everyone would be putting him in his place a little more than just Jace.
Correct.
Jace has that scene where he kind of tries to talk him down and Ulf kind of responds. He's like, okay. And then he walks off.
He realizes, oh, wow, I think the kid might actually not be bluffing here.
Right. But then past that, then there's that dinner scene with Rhaenyra. And I mean, you do see like her Kingsguard at one point, like kind of put his hand on his sword.
He does. He grabs the hilt and he's like, oh, mother, I'm going to.
And I do get that she's in this position where she's like, I need these dragon riders.
Yeah.
He does have like kind of some power here. Like
she's stuck because if he gets pissed, he could just go over to Team Green.
Right. But I don't know. There's still a dynamic there that I'm like, it's not quite working for me. And if there was something else I bumped on in this episode, that would be it.
And this is what I was talking about at the beginning of of our show, was that I feel like characters kind of come in and out of what we've known them to portray as their character.
Right.
Ulf seems to be, he's always been kind of a hothead, little bit of he thinks he's pretty cool, but honestly, deep down, he's a total chicken crap, right? Like, he knows he's nothing. But then, you know, the red seed, is that what it's called? What's it called? Where they become a dragon rider.
The Red Sewing that happened.
The Red Sewing.
Where
so then
most of them died, but...
Yeah. So the Red Sewing happens, and he, of course, runs like a chicken that he is. And he winds up in Silverwing's corner of a layer of the mountain, basically, right?
Right.
And he's basically pooping his pants, and he's accepted, like, she's going to kill me. I'm going to die. And then she doesn't. She's like, oh, hey, you're cool. Yeah, let's do this thing.
You're a person. You're the only person I've seen in forever, and fine.
I've been in this cave for 50 years, and I'm bored, and I need to get out and stretch my wings, and you'll do. So she goes with it, right? And man, the cojones on this dude, like the entitlement comes in quick and fast and swift with him. And he really thinks he's hot crap very soon. And I think what's surprising is just how mouth he is to them. And I'm thinking, yes, you are now a dragon rider and you do have this really cool, we'll call it power at your whim now. And yeah, the downside is he could just be like, screw you guys, I'm swinging to the other team. And he could totally take that dragon and go play on the other team's side. And so these are the eggshells that they're walking on. But at the same time, like, he just keeps going and going. And it's funny because in the bar, he never seems rude to like the service workers that are there. Like, he's not rude to the tavern wenches. But he's rude as hell to these servants that work in this castle. I'm like, what? When did that shift happen? Like, that's weird.
To me, the writers seem to really be, I guess, trying to portray this, like, well, the power that you must feel when you've been able to claim a dragon. And I mean, it affects everyone differently. And obviously, the 3 different new writers that we have all claim their dragons in different ways and are all kind of handling it in a different way. But with him, it seems like we're taking the character approach of this guy was kind of nothing, and just being able to claim a dragon, which is a huge deal in this world, it would be a huge deal in any world, really affected this dude in a pretty negative way with his attitude.
Well, yeah, no, he thinks his shit don't stink.
I kind of buy it. I kind of don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's again something else in the episode I bumped on.
It's a smidge too extreme of a shift, in my opinion. Like they swung a little too hard, I think, in his dynamic shift in his brain. But yeah, no, it's interesting that Jace is the only one that's like, dude, remember your place, man. You like, yeah, you're on a dragon now, but let's remember who the hell brought you into the situation. Can we maybe, find a level here? I'm surprised that Rhaenys didn't just be like, sir, you can go to your room. I'm done with you at this table for dinner. I don't want to hear you talking to me anymore. Because I'll tell you, I'd be like, you can go. You can be dismissed tonight. Bye. Grab a bottle of wine on your way out. Don't let the door hit you on the butt. You need to go chill the hell out. I'm the queen.
Anything else in this episode or in the season that you wanted to chat about? Or
I think my other thing is traveling back and forth between King's Landing and I can't think of the castle that they're on. Dragonstone.
I mean, they're pretty close to each other.
I know that they're very close to each other. However, both of them have they've closed their gates. They're watching their waterway. They're trying to make sure people are not getting in and out of different, they don't want people creeping around. And yet, Rhaenyra and Alicent apparently can just, nobody's going to notice me. And on one side, I get it. Like, nobody knows what the Regency looks like. So they couldn't really identify them by their face. I get that. And then I think the one thing that goes well with, like, say, Rhaenys going back over to King's Landing and getting into the Red Keep and everything and getting into the, keep wanting to say chapel, but it's not a chapel. It's the big religious building they have. Mm-hmm. So, she's got the intel of how the White Worm used to get around to get her intel, and then how Daemon went around. So I kind of get that. But then, yeah, like Alicent just like, boom, just shows up at Dragonstone at the end and it's just like, hey, we need to chat again. I was like, wow, man, you guys are just letting each other go wherever you want. Nobody seems to really give a crap. It's just willy-nilly at this point.
This is weird. I don't know. This is another one that I guess I had back in whatever episode that was when Rhaenyra goes to King's Landing and visits her. And Sept. I remember in that episode going, oh, wow. In one sense, I'm super glad that they kind of like completed this kind of story arc in the same episode, because I had this feeling it was going to be this multi-episode thing that, I got to go visit Alicent. And I'm like, oh, wow, we're going to do it right now. And I absolutely was in the moment was thinking, man, how did she get in? And then it's become apparent, and King's Landing, at least in terms of, the fishermen and everyone, like being able to get in and out of King's Landing to do their business. I guess things have still been kind of open in terms of like the port or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I guess, we all know there's like these secret passageways and stuff at King's Landing. Fine. I didn't really have an issue with it. And honestly, with this, bit that happens in this episode with Alicent, I don't know. I didn't really. If I find this more believable than I find the opposite.
Going situation. To the Sept, I would have to agree. I think this is actually a little bit more believable.
To me, her showing up at Dragonstone, sure, I could see that, like Rhaenyra's Kingsguard, or like, whoa, what the fuck, and her Alicent's Kingsguard, as she mentions, immediately goes, look, here's my sword. I'm not here to fight. We're not here to fight. She wants to talk. She wants to talk to Rhaenyra. Can we make that happen? And then being like, all right, like, we'll check you for weapons and, we'll make that. I don't know.
No, I agree. I would say of the two situations, this was far more believable.
I guess, because I've heard that argument not just from you or like from lots of people so far when I've kind of looked into reactions to this episode of like, oh wow, how could that happen? I'm like, I don't know. It's not the craziest thing in this Game of Thrones world that we've seen.
It's not. There's definitely been times people have traveled from places we know are way out here that have been all the way there in like no time. So weirder things have happened. Well, I don't want to jump into their conversation just yet because it really ends up really well at the end of the episode. But what if we talk about Daemon and his situation?
Yeah, the way his
I knew this was going to be an interesting part.
His character and the way it's handled throughout the season for me was mostly disappointing in the sense of I like his character. I like how his character interacts with Rhaenyra in particular and everyone else. And I like to see him with everyone else. Mm-hmm. And this entire season, he's basically been alone at Harrenhal. And
it's been like a grumpy little preteen, like, I'm going to go away for a while and be pissy.
I mean, I like how it ended. I like what we see in this episode. I thought that was a great scene of her showing up at Harrenhal and how that whole thing plays out. I quite enjoyed. And even in episode 7, what happens with what's his name, Tully. That scene also was quite good. So basically these last 2 episodes with Daemon have been fine for me, but most of this season has been a disappointing watch, and I feel like that maybe his storyline could have been handled better in the season. Yeah, I absolutely think so. But overall, I guess I'm happy with the way it ended, and we'll just move on. Like, that's where I am with it. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think the handling of him this season, and again, I've not read the book, and apparently, in Game of Thrones, there's a lot of, we'll call it mystical things that happen. There's definitely a whole magical realm, magicalness to the whole situation. Obviously, there's dragons. I mean, come on.
White Walkers. And
yeah. So, playing with kind of like people that are sensitive to being prophetic and stuff, like, it all kind of makes sense, right? And then him going to this castle, and the castle basically being cursed and basically just getting in his head and kind of like scrambling up his brains a little bit. And then and I had to look her up, her name, Alice Rivers, kind of, I'm going to use the word guide extremely loosely in this, guide him through his brain scramble. It's been weird. It's been weird as far as the show goes. I'm sure in the books, it's probably pretty cool to read about, being like, dude, this guy's so messed up. But as the show, it just doesn't come off well. It doesn't, I think, talk from page to screen the same way. And I think that's the big issue for me.
I mean, I haven't read it, but it seemed to be my understanding that a lot of it was show invention. I mean,
but then there's also, there's the show that kind of has taken a lot of liberties with just the whole idea of this. And like you said, like, I like him interacting, especially with Rhaenyra. The fight that they had before he fled, beautiful, such good scene. And they have really great dialogue with each other, and they work so well with each other. They're such a good couple together. Like, there's so much there that's just good, works. But then, he's just kind of hanging out on his own, losing his mind a little bit, It's just kind of wonky. Having said that, though, this episode with him ends, I think it ended really good in episode 7. It ends really well, and it lands it perfectly. He goes to I forgot what the tree is called in the courtyard.
Yeah.
And Alice Rivers is like, all right, this is it. This is the final like reveal, and you're either going to get it or you're not. So hopefully you're going to figure this out, dude. And he puts his hand on the tree, and it starts to bleed. And then he starts having these prophetic visions, and he sees the 3-eyed raven. And then he has this whole sequence, and he sees the White Walkers, and then he sees the battles kind of where they are. Then he sees you know, what we know is Daenerys with the 3 baby dragons. And so it's like he's realizing now he really is just a player in this entire thing. Like he's not the main character, and he gets it now. And so it was a very big eye-opening moment for him. And I'm like, oh, cool. He's cool. All the weird stuff kind of has come together finally. Thank God. And so, yeah, like at the end when Rhaenyra shows up and I like again, I just like watching the two of them on screen. I like that they speak High Valyrian to each other to kind of have a slight private conversation where nobody else really knows what they're saying to each other. And it's basically, you know, him going like, hey, I screwed up and I'm here for you now. And she's like, if you ever F this up ever again, I will probably kill you. But I love you. And he's like, hey, it's just me being me.
Right.
But it's a good scene. Like, it's like how in a relationship you'd be like, I love you, but I'm going to kill you if you ever do that again. And then at the end, you know, he proclaims himself for her, and then everybody falls into place. And it's like, okay, we have an army, we have dragons, we have more army coming from the north, we have army coming over the riverlands, we have armies, we can battles can be done now. This basically, again, this whole season's been built up to how are we going to execute a war, and now they can do that. And so it's a great scene for just so many levels.
You sounded like there was something else you wanted to discuss.
I guess just kind of the last scene between Alicent and Rhaenyra. Unless you had something else.
I do not, actually.
So,
I'm pretty good. So yeah, what was it?
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna talk about that conversation. Like, it was just, in a way, it was kind of weird that she just kind of shows up, but it's a conversation that needed to be had, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see Alicent's really come around from where she was at the end of last season. You know, she was pretty ready to die on that sword of her son's going to be king. And she's come to realize, you know, her 2 sons are not it. And after that conversation at the Sept, she knew that was what it was, but she didn't want to accept it at that time. And then all the other events occur, and then she's like, this is just not working. This is bad. And she goes out on her little, like, we'll call it the leave, and she goes out to the woods to kind of clear her head. And she's like, well, I don't even know who I am. Like, I don't know. I basically was a teenager, and then I became a queen. Like, what? Who am I? And she's like, did I even want this? And I think she has this huge moment of reflection, and she realizes, like, this isn't at all what I wanted for my life, my children. None of this makes any sense to me anymore. And I would rather just walk away from it right now and be done. Mm-hmm. And so for her to basically have that acceptance, and then to let Rhaenyra know, like, I'm not going to fight you anymore. You can go forth and proceed with what you need to do. And then, you know, of course, Rhaenyra's like, if I'm going to be successful, your sons are not going to survive. Well, she really specifically seeks out Aemond, the second born. And, you know, Alicent really has to have a coming to Jesus moment there and go, mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to. I guess that's how it's gonna have to go. And I mean, no, I'm sure for her to be like, yep, I know you're going to kill my son is not a fun thing to admit to another person, let alone to yourself inside. She knows that that's the only way this is gonna go down. That's heavy.
Yeah, no, I liked the scene. I didn't really have like any issues with it. It all kind of played out the way I felt like it should have played out. Rhaenyra doesn't just kind of go, oh, okay, we were friends, everything's great. Like, she's like, you're just gonna assume I'm cool with you walking away from everything, and this is basically all your fault to a point. Like, but yeah, no, I didn't have an issue with it. I like how it played out. I'm curious to see where Allison's story goes from here in regards to this whole show. I mean, obviously, given the kind of deal they seem to make, it's not like she's already walking off into the sunset yet.
Right.
I mean, theoretically, it sounds like she will need to go back to King's Landing and do her part.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see what happens.
It sounds like she's going to go back, collect her daughter,
right.
granddaughter as well. I wonder, and so it leads me to the whole montage, like you see the Hightower army leaving their lands and her youngest son on his dragon kind of above them, guiding them out. Mm-hmm. But to me, and maybe I just didn't pick up on it, it was unclear as to where his allegiance was going to be. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be to Team Green as a whole, but now that Allison has changed her tune, did she write to him? We don't know. So his army, I think, is kind of an interesting at play situation, in my opinion. The Hightower army is I didn't come away from this episode going, oh, I know exactly what team he's going to wind up on. Because in my opinion, obviously, I think leaning Green, but you never know.
I mean, given everything we know, to me, as of right now, the Hightowers are still Team Green. I don't really see a reason why that would be any different yet. But hey, we don't have the full story yet, so.
Right. Like, I'm wondering if it gets, like, in the next season, 2 years from now, it gets to a point where they're in a battle and then he finally gets a raven. He's like, oh, crap. We got to lay our arms down. We're on the other team.
Right.
I don't know. And then Otto's the other part of the whole, like, where's Otto? What's Otto up to? What's he going to do when he gets out of whatever that situation he's currently in? It's all very interesting.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I think I'm still just impressed that Larys was able to get Aegon to leave at the end. I'm still kind of impressed with that, I'll be honest.
Yeah, again, I don't know. It didn't really surprise me. I mean, because he's not wrong. Like, he's probably going to die. So just that alone, I'm like, because we don't know what's going to happen until we get that montage. And then we see the shot of them in the carriage. Mm-hmm. Like, and obviously, I guess Aegon is finally gone. All right, fine, you win. Let's do this.
Like, he's stepping away from the crown, basically.
I mean, but, he's not just a normal guy stepping away from the crown, right? I mean, look at him. Like,
there's not much.
Apparently, his dragon is dead. So we've been told by him, and I think another character at some point mentioned
Kristen Cole kind of says he says some phrase that basically alludes to he's dead.
In the dying or something like that. And then, I mean, Aegon straight up says in this episode 8, that he's dead. So I guess his dragon's dead. He is a mess. I mean,
he's a hot mess.
He's probably gonna die because Aemond has lost it, and I mean, he knows Aemond tried to kill him anyway.
Oh yeah, he knows.
Yeah, I guess seeing that shot of them in the carriage in the montage, I was like, okay, yep, that tracks. That's kind of where I was with it.
No. As a whole, I think the episode, like, I think as a whole, when I look at those things, I'm like, it's a solid episode for sure. It's a good one. I just don't think it ended where everybody wanted it to. And I think that's what the upset is.
Yeah. And I get that.
And
I get it, but I guess I kind of expected it and I didn't really bump on it in the moment when it ended. I mean, sure. Like, did I want to see some action at the end? And there was, I think, a moment earlier in the episode where I thought it was going to end. And I was like, when it kept going at some point, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting a little more. Mm-hmm. Cool. But I mean, at that point, it wasn't like, I don't know. I knew we were definitely over an hour or whatever. And I'm like, we're not going to get a battle here.
Yeah, no.
So, I guess, again, to kind of go back to what I said at the beginning in terms of this episode and the whole season, it didn't end in a way that really bothered me all that much.
No.
I mean, maybe it would be easier to stomach if it was like, okay, we're getting season 3 next year. And, we only had to wait a year. We knew they were already shooting it or something. But the fact that apparently they're still writing the season, they're supposed to start pre-production and kind of finish up writing in the fall with the idea of starting production early-ish 2025, as they said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it is.
But it is what it is. At least we get another Game of Thrones universe show coming up next year. And in regards to that, I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know anything about, I think it's called Tales of Dunk and Egg. And I know the show is going to be called Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't know anything about that story, but I know that apparently it takes place about 100 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and House of the Dragon is taking place from, if I'm remembering correctly, about 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. So when this new show comes about, I am curious, like, how much we'll see and any references that will be made that can somewhat spoil what's going to happen in House of the Dragon.
Like, will they have any random references to the Dance of the Dragons? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the outcome of the Dance of the Dragons, I guess, is and I'm assuming they're not going to, but
I would assume, I mean, obviously the producers all know where we stand in the terms of the show of House of the Dragon so far. We still have half the show left. But I mean, hey, and I'm also saying that knowing that Game of Thrones itself references basically the story of what we're seeing in House of the Dragon. I know there's that scene between, Stannis Baratheon and his daughter, and she's like telling the story of Rhaenyra and everything. And I don't remember when she tells that story, if she basically tells the whole story or not, because it's been a while since I watched Game of Thrones. And I kind of don't want to see that scene now. I think I randomly came across it once on like TikTok, and I'm like kept scrolling. I'm like,
no,
obviously I've seen this before, but now I don't really remember the story, and I'm enjoying the show, so I don't want to know the story.
Right.
But I'm curious in this new show, considering the setting and the information will be given, like, will there be hints of like, hey, I mean, again, we obviously know where things end up when we start Game of Thrones. We know the Targaryens are basically gone.
Yeah.
And, I know in a certain sense there are no spoilers here, but there still are. We don't really know the details of how this is going to play out. So
right. Anybody who hasn't read the books is like us. We're clueless other than what we know from Game of Thrones. And so we can only piece together so much of the whole picture.
I can see that Night of the Seven Kingdoms is going to like tease information without spoiling things.
Yeah.
I have a feeling little things will be mentioned, but in a way where, because House of the Dragon is still an active show, they're not going to like kind of spoil what takes place.
It'll be an interesting show. I think it's going to be kind of a slow burn, that show. That's my theory. But enjoyable. But I think it's going to be kind of a chill. I guess as chill as Game of Thrones can be, kind of a show.
It would seem that it's going to be of a smaller scope.
Yeah, it's very focused.
I mean, I know nothing, but that's my guess. I mean, if you watched the HBO montage of upcoming shows that they played before this episode. And I'm sure a lot of you skipped it just to get right into House of the Dragon. If you don't know and you didn't watch that, they do show very short clips of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Yeah. I keep saying that title. I'm pretty sure that's the title. Not much, but that's really all I have to go off of is those few shots we've seen and very little bit I've heard about the book, which is basically nothing. So I get this sense, though, considering it's a story about a knight and his squire, I guess that it's going to be a kind of a smaller scope in this world.
Right.
And that'll be interesting.
We didn't talk about little old House Lannister pulling out a deal. Lannisters be Lannisterin' in this episode.
We did not.
I was impressed.
You were impressed?
I was impressed. He didn't just get his hands dirty. He got dirty. And he went for it. And I'm like, yeah, you pulled that deal out, man. Yeah. It's impressive. Because he was all like, I'm respectable.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have like any opinion about like what takes place there. I mean, part of me was like, oh, why are we spending so much time with this guy? And why are we spending so much time with him and then a new character in the final episode of the season?
It's like the most we've had of him the whole show.
But yeah, I forget the other character's name that he, you know,
kind of Captain something, I think.
I forget her name. Yeah. And it is interesting to kind of have her introduced, and she seems great. I kind of enjoyed her character, but
yeah,
then just to be introduced to this character and then I'm like, okay, now the season's over.
Yeah. I think what it is it's a setup for the next season, because from what I understand in the books is that character, which is actually a male in the books, but they changed it to a female, I think, which is genius and fun. Mm-hmm. So I guess that character is pretty involved in what's going to occur in the next few battles, I guess, in this war in Dance of the Dragons in the next season. So it sounds like that character, who is a character unto themselves, is a very large character, apparently very fun and whatever, loud, I guess, I don't know. It is much more involved, which is why we needed this introduction to this character. And could it have waited till the next season? Yeah, maybe. But it was kind of cool to see the deal went down. And, you know, the House Lannister is they're all about money, and they're all about keeping themselves at the top of the world. But, you know, it was kind of cool to see a Lannister being a Lannister.
Brian, who's watching, did say it's going to be slower than Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. I assume referring to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Yeah. And then he says based on the books. Cool. So, yeah, that's the sense we both seem to be getting.
It's like it's a focused scope within that world.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm cool for. I think that'll be kind of a nice thing to kind of keep us in this world, but not really. I don't know. It's going to hold us over.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
It'll be a little appetizer.
Yeah.
While we wait for the next season of House of the Dragon, for sure.
2 years.
We hope. With that, anything else to wrap things up?
That's all I got.
You seem, again, I guess, to go back to your original thoughts at the beginning of this episode, you seem kind of like not. If anything, I would say the least interested in this season, as you have been in much of anything to do with the Game of Thrones stuff.
I would agree with that. I feel like as a whole, this season was kind of a slower burn. With exceptions, there were some really great moments and some really great some episodes that were really strong, I think. And I think episode 7 and I'll be honest, I think episode 8 were probably the strongest to me of the story that was being given to us in this season. I think it's the weaker link, but I also acknowledge that it's a season of, you know, season 1 is getting to know everybody and what's happening and what this is all about and why we're going to have this huge war that's going to happen. And then this season, like I said, has been, okay, we're going to have this war. How the heck are we going to have this war? And it's just been figuring out the logistics of it. And that's kind of what I've just kind of come to the conclusion of for the season. It's like, this is a logistics season. And I need to go back and rewatch all of Game of Thrones, but I feel like there was probably a season season or two within Game of Thrones that was mostly a logistics seasons.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not a bad season. It's just kind of a necessity to get the story to continue to the next phase.
Overall, I enjoyed the season quite a bit, actually. I didn't really have issues with the finale. With that said, sure, would I have preferred this to have been a 10-episode season instead of 8?
Oh,
absolutely.
Well, yeah.
And did this feel more like a mid-season finale? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I again, having not read these books and not knowing what they have to cover from here on out, I just have to hope that the reason they ended it the way they did is just because of how they're going to have to tell the rest of the story, and it wouldn't have made sense to do 2 more episodes. But I don't know. That's just me hoping, since I haven't read the books and I don't know. But yeah, if it were up to me, we would have gotten 2 more, and we would have gotten at least some more battle, and then it would have ended in a better way where at least we got a little bit of a battle, and then we knew there was more to come.
Yeah.
So
I hope our listeners have made a drinking game out of how many times we have referenced that we have not read the books.
have you read the books? I have not.
I have not read the books.
We have mentioned it a few times. My apologies.
We're both guilty of it. I just hope the listeners made a game out of it.
Maybe by the time we talk about Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon again on this show, we will have read Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'll be hooked and I'll read the Song of Ice and Fire, but which is not even still complete. But which is another. I mean, that's really another reason I haven't been particularly drawn to reading those books, because they're not complete. I'm like. And that actually just popped in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, they're not done.
Yeah, he still hasn't finished it. He's still not done.
Yeah, it's crazy. But Fire and Blood, I'm like, oh, okay, I can read that. It's a one-off kind of thing. Yeah. Cool.
I agree.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap things up. Of course, we would love to hear from all of you. What did you think of this whole season of House of the Dragon? What did you think of the finale? If you're watching us here on YouTube, leave your comments or questions down below in the comments section. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we post any videos or go live in the future. And you can also reach out to us on Instagram and X/Twitter at Flickr_effect. With that, I'm Dave Lott.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening and watching, everybody.